and reject the Trump administration's rollback on clean car standards. The clean car standards finalized in 2012 help make sure that cars, pickup trucks, and SUVs are more fuel efficient and save drivers money at the pump.
We think that rolling back some of these clean car initiatives are not the right thing to do and not the right message to be sending. And so we're here to advocate for keeping some of these initiatives in place to make sure that we show responsibility for the future.
And we're told these standards save the typical Virginia family an average of $2,900 at the pump over the life of their vehicle.